What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a pretty interesting and not good situation with the Yakuza franchise. This is more of a news-type video versus the retrospectives that I normally do. But you know what? These are important, and these are looking back at old games. And sadly, whenever I make videos like this, we're always talking about something negative, right? It's either a game shutting down, it's either a game getting delisted. It's never positive news. It's been a very interesting couple days, depending on when you guys see this, for Yakuza. There was kind of a sign that you were going to have these games delisted a day before they announced it. So let's kind of go in chronological order. And by the way, from the response that I have seen, and I don't like it either. Outside my own personal opinion, I hate what's going on. I think it's they're not on a good roll recently. They've been making a lot of mistakes. I'm not really pleased with it. And at least the Twitter community that I see that's normally very supportive, they're not very supportive right now. So, okay, coming from Wario, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, Yakuza Kiwami, and Kiwami 2, PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC digital upgrade offers announced for digital owners who own the game by December 8th, okay? So you see the thing, Yakuza 0, the upgrade's $15. Yakuza Kiwami, it's $2, and then Yakuza Kiwami 2, it's a free upgrade. This does not apply to subscriptions or to physical versions. All right, let's pause there because this happened a day before. Now, you do get some answers because people were saying, okay, when they say who owned the game by December 8th, when you see that, normally that's a good indication that you're going to have games be delisted. That's kind of your final call, right? And that's not, whenever you see that, it's just not a good sign. They're planning to remove the games right after that. This was just kind of an early, maybe slip up. Okay, so that was one. And by the way, spoiler alert, this ended up happening. They are delisting these games, which is a tragedy, and I will get to why I'm upset about that in a second. You know, it not applying to subscriptions, that's totally fair. There's absolutely nothing to complain about there. If you have it in a subscription, you don't actually own it, so that's the ecosystem we're in. But to physical versions, I will push back on that. That to me is just not fair. Is it harder? Perhaps, but it's not that hard. I mean, you put the disc in, it reads it, it knows you have it, you do the upgrade, and maybe you have to just put the disc in every time you play it. Like, it's been done. It's not a new thing. What I described to you is not rocket science, and it's what other companies have done, so it's not new. You know, so that feels like kind of an insult, that they would not do physical versions. They're only doing digital, okay? And then also, I mean, the price themselves, I mean, okay, am I really going to complain about $2? You're not getting the world when you're upgrading Kiwami, to be fair. But is it worth $2? Fine, whatever. You know what I mean? I'll let them off the hook there. Free upgrade. Okay, free upgrades are cool. That's all fine. Yakuza 0, upgrading to the Director's Cut, $15. I know they added stuff. I have seen universal hate for the stuff that they added, like the story content. I've seen universal hate for it. So to do $15, yeah, it is content. And to be fair, it's more content than the other ones. But it's not, in my opinion, or at least what I've seen, it's not good content. It's not content worth doing $15. So I think that is a massive overprice personally, but again, that's just me. All right, so that was a couple days ago. When I'm recording it, it was yesterday. When I'm also recording it, now the second part of this is today. But again, this is probably going to change depending on when you guys are seeing it. All right, so now we get the official bombshell, the thing that we were all afraid of that actually, ended up happening. Yakuza 0 for PS4, Xbox One, and Steam will no longer be available for purchase from December 8th, right? So there's your tie-in. Those who get Yakuza 0 by that time can continue to download and play the title. Those who get the digital version of Yakuza 0 for PS4, Xbox One, or Steam by that date will also be able to upgrade to the Director's Cut for $15, a significant saving versus the $50. I guess you could argue that, whatever. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut will also replace Yakuza 0 in the Yakuza Complete Series digital bundle available on the PS Store, Microsoft Store, and Steam. Also, the Windows 10 versions of Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami, and Yakuza Kiwami 2 will no longer be available to purchase on the Microsoft Store from that date. Customers who purchase these titles by that date can continue to download and play the game. And I mean, there's a couple, like I could just read some tweets here from Punished Kazi, delisting the original game to replace it with a release that adds nothing of value, and it's also twice as expensive as the original. Do I even have to be surprised after the last 2 months? Do I feel for newcomers that'll be getting into this series in the coming years? I mean, that's really, really well said. This user, Dostanovich, I'm at a loss for words, finally announces Yakuza 0 will be delisted in 10 days, which makes the director's cut the new one, the real new one. They delist them in Windows 10 instead of updating them. They refuse to update the GOG versions. The new updates break all the mods, cannot transfer saves, even on PC. And it just goes on and on. You know, I do not think people are happy, and this probably leans more into the territory. You know, I think a couple weeks back I made a video on the whole Resident Evil, if you remember, I think the GOG situation there, where it just seems like, well, actually it doesn't seem like, they, I think, said like Capcom doesn't get that people like the original, the vanilla versions of these early Resident Evil titles. And in that video, you know, we kind of talked about preserving the originals. Remasters and remakes do have their places, they do, and I think I value them more than probably most people, at least in this community. But at the same time, I do recognize, and I also can see, when you do remasters and remakes, a lot of times it is to kind of get people off of those original versions and to just flat out replace them. And in reality, you know, you will always lose something when you remake. Like, you can have, there's some amazing remasters and remakes, right? And in some ways, those could be the preferred way of playing it. But when you take away, when you just update the original, there's something always going to be special about that original game, right? And so we're kind of seeing it here. Look, this is a flat out delisting. Like, you are taking these things out. You're replacing Yakuza 0 in a bundle that already exists. You're replacing what version of the game it is in that bundle. That's kind of wild. That is a little bit of a deeper manipulation type thing, right? To really kind of scrub your catalog of it. You know what I mean? Like, they're looking through their binders and they're saying, oh, we included it in this thing. Well, we got to swap that thing out because the original Yakuza 0 doesn't exist anymore to us. And that's just sad. That's sad. And on top of which, I would argue, at least again from what I've seen some of that story content that they put in the director's cut of 0, and I am not pleased. I think it hurts the story of Yakuza 0. Now, I have not played it, I have not bought it, and I don't really want to, because I think Yakuza 0 is such a freaking incredible game, the best Yakuza game, and I think the best Yakuza story. So I'm kind of just offended, and I just have never done it. So, you know, I guess taking it with a grain of salt, but like, I would argue that it's not the better version. Like, this would be an example where I think you could argue the original Yakuza, the vanilla version, is better than the director's cut, and yet they're scrubbing the world. They're scrubbing the catalog, they're scrubbing the internet, they're scrubbing the storefronts of that version. And that I've seen it more and more, you know, as I've talked about this more and more. Like, it does not make people happy, on top of all the other kind of issues that RGG and Yakuza have had over this year, right? Kind of more controversies and just more things. This is just unnecessary. See, you could argue that maybe for a couple of things they've done that people are mad at, but this one I would say is one of the top of the list. Like, this one is not something you needed to do, and I get the pushback, so that sucks. You know, I actually do not have Yakuza 0 physically, and that's one that I gotta fix. Not that it really, you know, because they're kind of just messing up the whole online situation, but I think maybe it makes Yakuza 0, the physical version, kind of more of a rare collector's type item. I want it. I definitely want it, and I'm going to get it at some point. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.